what do you think about trans people as a group? Do you hate them? It sounds like
no.
I don't really
of course
know you.
not. I don't hate
really
them.
know you, but it sounds
not. I don't
like
hate
you
them.
hate them.
What's the solution for men and women's sports, male and female sports, which has always been separated by biology? It cannot be changed no matter how many hormones you take. What's the solution? Continue going with what we have done to ensure the safety and equal opportunity of women. That's why Title IX exists. Right. Or upend all of it so that we don't hurt some people's feelings.
Well, no, it's not just black. It shouldn't be so black and white. It shouldn't just be this or that.
Then what is a solution?
A solution, have a trans league. First of all, have a trans league, have more divisions where more people can compete. Fuck it. Why don't we just have an augmented league where you can have robot legs? Let's just see how far we can push the human body.
We actually do. There was a guy who had the South African who had no legs and he had those bent back paper clips that he ran on, and then he killed his girlfriend.
Yikes. Well, I mean, I think.
You don't remember that story?
I don't remember that story. I know. But
he was running around. It looked like he was running around. It looked like he was from that Sector 9 movie. Like those prawn. He was running around these little like bent back metal paper clips, and then people were complaining that he had an unfair advantage. And they're like, well, he doesn't have any legs. And it's like, well, yeah, but those are basically mechanical at that point.
But then also, if he wanted to compete, how could he there's no, mechanical leg league to compete, You
don't get to.
That's kind of lame. I just think I think that's lame to the sport. That's lame to the activity. That does a disservice to people who want to participate in these.
I want to set a bench press record. Can I do it I want to set a world bench press record. Can I use a crane?
Well, it's not. I think you're going about the sport wrong if you're just trying to break a record, because there's a lot more involved in breaking records than. Not
to these women who are afforded scholarships and coaching jobs, right? We would have to acknowledge that's important. It's not fun to be an NCAA. It's not fun to be a silver medalist at the Olympics, like the lady who had to place second. It's a tough life.
Right.
And then you're ripping it from them because someone who was a middling to low-end male swimmer decided, I'm going to be a woman next year. I don't think that's fair, and I don't think it's looking out for the best interests of women.
I don't think it's. You're talking so much about women, and you're talking so much about the rights of these people. But what about the trans people? Do they not also have rights? Are they not also humans that
we don't have a right?
Us? I mean,
I don't think that it's a right to compete. Specifically, that's what we're talking about.
If we're just talking about sports, yeah. It's a little unfair.
If they want to take a dump at a Target in a muumuu with some eye makeup, I don't care.
But it's the hatred with which you speak about them.
What hatred?
The way that you talk about them it's not respectful to them.
How have I spoken about them? That's disrespectful. I just don't think they should be allowed to beat up on women or beat women at sports.
No, that's fair, but is there not an underlying. What do you think about trans people as a group? Do you hate them? It sounds like
no.
I don't really
of course
know you.
not. I don't hate them.
Really know you, but it sounds
not. I don't
like
hate
you
them.
hate them.
No, I don't hate them at all. I feel sorry for many of them.
In what way do you feel sorry for them?
Well, I think that we're dealing with a demographic that now we're getting off of the topic here, but I think we're dealing with a demographic that has a 19 times the suicide rate of the general population. It's a 42% attempted suicide rate. And I don't think that denying the realities, the constraints of biology and the human condition is helping them. I think that we're actually putting many of them, and especially when you involve hormone replacement therapy, and when we know what estrogen does to the male body, when we know what excess estrogen does to the female body, we are, in an attempt to coddle them, rather than seek assisting them, we're putting them into a shallow, young, cancerous grave.
So then do you think that transgender, or being trans, is a disease more than it is a lifestyle choice?
No, I don't think it's a disease. I think that you would have to look at a very, very strong, not only correlation, but causation, because you would look at both pre and post-op. The suicide rate doesn't improve.
Right.
The attempted suicide rate is about 41-42% pre-op. It's about 41-42% post-op. The mental health issues are through the roof. The regret upon transitioning, even though very few of them actually do go through with the bottom surgery, even hormone replacement therapy, is very, very high. So I think we have to look at that and say, okay, why is this happening in this community? And how do we actually more effectively address that than just say, however you identify, compete that way, and we used to say gender and sex were different, but now we'll allow them to be one and the same in sports. I don't think it's productive.
Right. Well, for me, it breaks my heart because I think about the fact that the suicide rate is super high. So many of them are killing themselves. So
Why do
many
you
of
think
them
that is?
Are so unhappy. part of that's because society hates them because of the way that so many people treat them. I mean, if you feel like I think that's part of it. I think there's certainly a mental health aspect of it. But I also think that if you feel like you're a woman and everyone around you is just constantly saying biological man, biological man, biological man.
Like doctors,
that's different. I mean, okay, sorry, let me rephrase that. I don't think that it's fair to only think about the rights of women in sports without also talking about trans mental health. I mean, there's so much that goes into all of these issues.
No, I agree,
Right.
but I think they're separate issues. I think that biological men, we both agree, biological males should not be allowed to compete with biological females. And sure, we can address the mental health issues. You know, it's interesting that you bring up, I don't agree with the premise that it's because society hates them. I don't agree with it because, matter of fact, minorities in this country, minorities historically have a lower rate of suicide, right? Black people have a 2.5 times lower rate of suicide than white individuals. Suicide, I don't know if you know, is almost entirely a middle-aged white male problem. Also, I don't believe that they have it worse than Jews in Auschwitz because that's a 25% attempted suicide rate. Do we believe that a transgender individual in 2022, because they can't set another women's swim meet record, is going to attempt suicide because they have a worse life than Jews in Auschwitz? They have a worse life. They're being treated worse in society than American slaves. Nowhere else can you find this high of an attempted suicide rate outside of people with severe psychiatric conditions that we address.
Right.
And in this case, we're saying, well, no, rather than address someone, let's say, who's paranoid schizophrenic, we're going to say, no, those delusions are real. Right. That's what we're doing right now. That's why the suicide rate is so high. That's why it doesn't get better after treatment. It's a very heartbreaking reality. We've tried it this way now for a couple of decades, and it hasn't yielded good results. It's yielded worse results.
So then you do think that transgenderism is a disease? I mean, or do you?
I think they, by their own declarations, there is rampant mental health. There are rampant mental health issues in the transgender community, right? They have said that.
But you think it's a disease? You think it's something that needs to be ironed out? You think that they just need to figure out how to feel happy?
I think that if someone is biologically a male, I think right now you're a man, right? And I can tell that you're a man. You can tell that I'm a man. We don't need to do all the college doublespeak here. I think for you to look down right now at your penis and for you to go through with what it takes to cut that off, I want you to. This is a mental exercise. I want you to think about for a second what kind of a mental place you would need to be in to hate your penis so much that you have it cut off and turned into a non-functioning vagina for the rest of your life, which, by the way, will very likely prevent you from ever achieving sexual climax again. To think of the mental state that you would have to be in, genuinely put yourself there, that's not a healthy place to be mentally.
I don't know if it's as black and white as that. I think there's a gray area where it's not just about, cutting off your penis. It's about feeling better in your own body. It's about if you look at yourself in the mirror, and you look at your f***ing cock and you're like, oh man, I can't live with this thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like me. It doesn't. Who am I to say, you know what, you can't? Go ahead, cut it off. I mean, who are we to stop them from doing that? And
I'm not saying you can't.
Right. I'm not saying you can't.
I just don't think it's fair to characterize it as hateful for me to say that seems pretty severe.
It seems extreme, but that also just shows how uncomfortable they feel in their body.
I agree.
I can't imagine looking at myself every day and just not feeling like myself. I mean, if you had to live every day inside someone else's body and never feel like yourself, that's hell.
Well, it's your own body.
Well, okay, it is your own body.
You just believe it's someone else's body.
If it doesn't feel like your own, if you're unhappy with it, if it's so bad that you are talking about, changing your body, getting bottom surgery, it is a bad mental state, but it's also
good. We agree.
It's a bad mental state, but not in the same way that.
But it's not corrected by going through with the transition. It gets slightly worse.
I think that's on an individual case-by-case basis.
No, statistically.
And I think it depends.
The attempted suicide rate stays the same post-op. And again, it's double that of Jews in Auschwitz.
Right.
And I think that matters. Because people will throw out the moniker as you did, hate. There's no hate. But just like I've had people in my family who, struggle with severe bipolar disorder. I don't hate them when I say, look, you're not seeing things clearly. I've had to do that. I've had to have interventions and say, this is not accurate. It's clouded by your mental health condition. Not a disease, there's a difference between a psychiatric condition and a disease, an actual disease state. And I think to mischaracterize that as hate is also what creates this bully pulpit that causes real harm to women in women's sports. And look, I think you care about people. I would appreciate, though I don't demand, that you maybe recognize that I do as well. I just have a different approach to it and different solution to it. And I believe that women need to be defended just as much as other people do. And I think we agree on the third division.
Watch Louder with Crowder live, Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern.